They probably well,
They
well,
got
they
it right.
Uh-oh.
All set? Welcome to the April 5th, 2023 meeting of the Lyman Planning Board. This meeting will come to order. This is a public proceeding. I'll get the wrong thing here. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and look at all the exhibits that are offered. If the board votes to go into executive session, the reason for the same shall be stated. Please notify the board chair if you're having difficulty seeing or hearing. This meeting is being recorded for YouTube. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinance or ordinances. After the board votes on the merits of each project, it will prepare a written opinion, which will be forwarded within 7 days. The board works from a prepared agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Eric Dudevore on a Plain Brewing, 347 Hill Road, map 11, lot 137A. Request for an extension of contract permit. Chad and Jennifer Burnett, 123 Wadley Pond Road, map 10, lot 7, renewal of best practical location. Hissong's Steve Patch, application to go below water table at gravel pit. MX 207, overdue permit renewal, minutes and review minutes and old business. And we want to do a roll call tonight?
Kelly DeBoer, Partridge Way.
Joe Wagner, 26 Day Road.
Don Hernan, 33 Murphy's Way.
Rod T2, 357 Walker Road.
Cecile Dupuy, 53 Chapel Shores Road.
Paul Boucher, 88 Old Pump Road.
Bill Single, 8 Single Lane.
Okay, Mr. Duvall.
How do you pronounce your name, please?
Dudevoir.
Duvall.
Dubois.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, I apologize for poor pronunciation.
Okay, got it. We'll try to get it right.
All right, so forgive me if I don't speak clearly, even though I've stood on stage for the majority of my life playing music, I still get nervous in front of crowds. Chair Taratutu, the members of the Lyman Planning Board, by notice of decision dated September 23rd, 2019, the Planning Board approved our site plan application for On a Plain Brewing. Pursuant of the notice of decision, the approval would expire if the work was not commenced within 1 year completed. Within 2 years of the approval date. As a result of the unforeseen challenges described more fully below, we're unable to meet construction deadlines. I'm writing you this letter to ask for your approval to extend our site plan approval at 347 Hill Road. Over the last 3+ years, this project has experienced every setback imaginable due to the coronavirus pandemic. Our first setback was plumbing related. The plumber we had originally planned to use lost all of his employees due to the lockdown and couldn't commit to our agreed upon timeline anymore. With the housing market spike at this time, it was almost impossible to get a plumber to take on this type of project in a timely manner. Most companies were 2 years out for a start date. Once we were able to find a plumber to take on the job, we ran into a major issue of getting materials in a timely manner. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the style of trough drains we needed went from a 3 to 4 week ordering time to a 6 to 8 month ordering time. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only item we had to wait for. Most of the HVAC and refrigeration equipment went from being readily available to having an 18-month wait time. You can imagine how hard this was for every company involved on this project. All these setbacks led to a cascading effect of colliding timelines amongst our tradesmen. On top of all the coronavirus setbacks, we were faced with our second-born daughter being diagnosed with LGS. That's larynx gastro syndrome, for everybody that's wondering. This has consumed most of our time for the past few years. During all this, our electrician went through his own series of family-related hardships and was not able to accomplish his work. September of 2022, we were able to get another electrician to take over the job. Since then, everything has been moving smoothly. February of 2023, the HVAC company and plumber were able to complete their agreed upon work. We have been hard at work doing finishing work in the building and are prepared to receive our brewing equipment, which is coming up Tuesday. We are set on getting this project finished and the tap room open to the public this year, and ask for your consideration to granting a reasonable extension of our site plan approval. I'll remain available for any questions or concerns and will be happy to provide any additional materials or documents the planning board may require. Sincerely, Eric Dearborn.
So you're what? You're like 2 years over? No.
We're like a year and some change.
A year and some change.
Yeah. Basically what happened when the first, kind of year went up, I had called Patty and I asked, what do we do about this? I'm pretty sure the planning board wasn't meeting at this time. I looked into it and haven't been able to really dig much up because it's, kind of all word of mouth at that level. And she I was kind of led to believe that every time a building permit would be reissued, that this thing kind of moved forward, this, that, and the other thing. And apparently that's not the case. So that's why I haven't seen you since then.
Would you say you're more than halfway, or you're 3/4 of the way
We're done.
completed? You're done,
We're done.
No.
Nice.
okay.
They actually called for a certificate of occupancy, but I wanted to get an extension from the planning board before I could do that.
Because the dates aren't right, okay.
As I said at the previous meeting when this issue was brought before us, I believe the pandemic just set you on your heels, as you've explained. I think we also stated that for the record, we needed him to come before us, as it is contract zone.
Yeah.
But I have no
That's
problem
true,
granting him the extension.
I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
No.
The only issue I would have is, and I don't know, I think it's reasonable, what you're asking for is reasonable also, but this was, I forgot, this was done under contract zone.
This is contract zoning, and that was going to be my next question. I would assume that we would have to re-record, do like a notice of decision and record that.
Well, no, wait a minute. This went to, the contract went to the select board, right, for approval?
Well,
It should have.
I had understood that it was contract zoning,
Oh, It
It
was.
was contract zoning.
The
but
only,
on the notice of decision,
Oh, boy,
I wish I'd made you a copy. Do you want to look at the
Yeah.
notice of decision?
please. Yeah, this was September 19th. This is public hearing. Boilerplate stuff.
16 standard.
Yeah, went through the whole process. It says, under conditions of approval, part 2, I mean, it's got all the standard boilerplate in there. But also it says that any changes to the contract are subject to review by the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board. So,
right, and we have not done anything to the contract zoning agreement, and we've gone over that with the lawyers, and they don't feel like that puts us on a timeline whatsoever. And that was kind of what we're going upon, but
Whereas
Everything
it,
is exactly the same as they applied for. nothing's
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah, so I don't. see
what
what
the
the issue
motion
is.
approved was the
Project
project.
that, Norm?
oh, here's this, here's the contract zone, okay. I'm just questioning whether, I mean, I wouldn't have any objection in voting to approve an extension. The only question would be whether or not we need to tell the select board what we're doing or get their approval.
They approved it. He's not changing anything, so I don't see where it would have to go before the select board again.
No, I'm not,
Or I don't think it would.
So
I would hope it didn't.
Only for the transfer of the contract, it would go before this planning board and so.
nothing of substance is being altered here. So
Nothing has changed.
So what date do you need the contract extended to?
we're just going through the legal process with the TVB, and obviously we'll be in here to get our necessary permits to open, brewery. But that's about a 3-month process. So I would say to keep things nice, probably till the end of the year.
Probably safer that way.
Yeah, or a 1-year extension, because, the cascading effect of the legal process. I think it easily leads to the next, and then I'm back here asking for another extension.
The contract itself doesn't have an expiration date. It goes with, so there's nothing that says we have to extend the contract. It's just a case of,
Extending this.
the site plan review, the notice of decision.
As it would for any site plan review,
Right.
right? For any permit that we issue, doesn't have to be contract zoning, has that 2-year limit, so
The
there's
only
nothing
thing,
to do with contract.
the only suggestion I would have, if the planning board votes to approve an extension, say for a year or something, I would suggest that we ought to, as a courtesy or information at least, send a note to the select board. So since they signed off on the contract, that we are extending this. Now, I don't know if that's necessary or not, if everybody else thinks it should or shouldn't do that. I'm just trying to be respectful of this select board's, I'm really not trying to be respectful of the select board, really. But I'm just saying that since they approved the contract, to let them know if that makes a difference. Maybe we shouldn't say anything. I don't know. I mean, it's a public meeting. We got all these guys on watching this, thousands of people watching us here on YouTube. So, and we have minutes that they could look at too. But that's just a thought that came through my mind. Maybe that's not a good thought. I don't know.
In my opinion, according to the ordinance, it's the permit that has a 2-year limit, and it does, I believe it does stay in there. Say in there that the planning board can extend it for, I believe it says that in there, if there's an issue. It doesn't say anything about going back to the state.
I wouldn't accept for the contract part of it, that's all, but I'm not
Right,
saying.
but there's nothing in there that says it has to go back to that I can see anyway.
Okay.
Did a quick look.
So I'll make a motion.
So, motion to extend the
There we go.
permit to end this calendar year
Well, I think we should extend it for a year
for a full year
Well, like, from when?
from today.
from today.
I'd be okay with that.
Let's make it a year.
So you're extending the site plan review.
For a year and the contract remaining the same.
So 4/5/2024.
I'll second that.
Is there any more discussion on it? All in favor of extending?
Aye.
I,
Thank you.
Thank you.
When are you gonna be open?
Tomorrow. We wanted to be open May this year, and we're set to, but obviously we have to go through the legal process with, the alcohol agencies and this, that, and the other, but as soon as we can open the doors, we're gonna open.
You don't have any good beer?
No.
Looking forward to seeing you. Good luck with your project.
All right, thank you guys.
Please,
you.
please notify the assessor when you're operating so they can jack your taxes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You too. Look forward to trying your beverages.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay, Chad and Jennifer Burnett. You,
Chad Bennett. More likely. We're just looking to extend the placement on 124, we're redoing our camp in the best possible place we can put the camp, I guess. The permit is getting ready to run out, or did run out. I came in to just make sure the building permit was getting ready to run out. This one, April 6th, I believe, the building permit was going to run out, so I want to renew that. And I was advised that the placement, the best possible placement, it was gonna be out already. We got a builder, so we went through the same thing as everybody. COVID, couldn't get a builder, pricing, all that stuff. I believe they ended up emailing you guys a copy of that. What we wrote.
Mhm.
Looking, I got a builder now. Pricing with lumber is about the same right now, so I could get it done, probably the next couple of months. I do have a guy willing to do it. Just looking to see if we could get everything renewed, I guess, would be the why I'm here.
okay, you're not changing the position we decided on.
Right,
Everything's staying the same.
Yeah, we're gonna stay the same. The only thing I was gonna ask while I was here was somebody advised us that there's a possible chance of adding 30% on the water. I don't know if that's onto a camp on the water. I don't know what I would have to go through for that. I don't know if that's even a
So
possible
that'd be
thing.
another whole site plan review.
Let's just skip that then.
it would have to be out.
All right,
Yeah.
let's not worry about that then. That's the only thing I was just gonna ask you guys.
Well, that's up to you though. I mean, we're not saying.
No, right, yeah, correct. You're right. No, I don't wanna go through all that. I'd rather just, so it's basically just a structure that's, it's pretty much, I guess before they put the dam in, it used to flood, water would come up, so the underneath of it's all rotted, so I couldn't even use the floor and nothing. They put the spillway in and it took care of that water problem. I never saw the water up to the floor before, but they said a lot of people tell me they drove by, could see the floor. So the cabin's no good. I think they used wood and stuff. There's not much that's savable there. So I had to, what I want to do is jack it up, get it away from the water, tear it down so the debris is not on the other water is my plan. Rebuild a new structure, the same size and everything, same dimensions, same everything. We would love to add on to it, but I don't want to go through all the, going through the plan.
Well, you could still do that in the future, right? If you wanted to.
If I decide to do
Well, you
that.
could decide to do that, yeah. Well, you're probably better off doing what you can now while you can.
Right, exactly. That's right. Yeah, correct. Yeah. I just, at the time, I got a small business myself and stuff, and I just
Yeah.
worried about us, our own business, and I didn't want to use business money or anything like that to try and get our camp done at that time. And the price of lumber was crazy. Trying to get it built was very hard. So just basically looking to see if we could just keep everything the same, not looking to change anything. I think it was, we came in on 2020 when you guys were doing Zoom, Patty and talk to you.
You have any issues on this,
No
one?
issues at all. I reviewed the whole folder and everything was done by the process. You did a site walk, you did all the
Yep.
notices, everything's fine.
So go ahead, Joe.
Well, this what, I'm sorry, so what would be a reasonable date for an extension, or how much time?
He's asking for a year.
A year?
Yeah,
I'm
so if
Yeah.
you
sorry.
guys give me a year, that'd be.
Yeah.
A year from
Well, yeah,
today.
get
My
back over
apologies.
to doing now.
Okay,
But I didn't want to get, what started it was, I didn't want to get started. He just did a little bit of an addition onto my house, and he said, I'll do the camp right after, but I was afraid of the building permit running out, because it runs out the 6th, this month. And
Oh, yeah.
it wouldn't be done, completed in that time.
Got it.
So I didn't want to be stuck, getting that out of there and then halfway, and then have some kind of issue or whatever.
Okay.
So he is willing to start on in the next couple of weeks.
I move that the permit be extended to a year from today, that'd be April 5th of 2024.
I'll second that. Is there any more discussion?
No.
All in favor of extending the permit for a year?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Bennett, just a quick one, is it 124 or 123 Wadley Pond?
123 is my home address, and 124 is the address,
Got it.
right across the street from it, right across the other side of the railroad.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve Patch.
So they've been a little confusing. John Pizzi is here with me as well.
Okay.
So, my name is Steve Pat, I live in North Yarmouth, Maine. I've been working with this one for probably the last close to 5 to 10 years at the company I worked at CD Mahar Engineers in Cumberland, and just recently retired last April, but still working with some clients. So we started, I started getting involved with the Stonefield Quarry. The DEP had requested that we do a study to demonstrate whether we were in the groundwater table or not. I don't know, Brendan, if you've been out to the quarry yet or not, but the better part of it's all sheer rock, solid walls coming down where they developed it. See right here. This is, all these lines right here are contour lines, and the reason they're so dark is because they're on top of each other. So we've probably got a 30 to 40 foot sheer wall of rock. And when, in the springtime, the quarry will have water in it, not too much, but enough that they pump, and they pump it over to their detention pond. They have a permit to be an external return quarry.
Yeah.
And then that settles, it goes out through a filter system underground. But they've always had a number of wells around the quarry. And I did send you some water table information that was back to 2004. If you look at those wells, you'll see that those water levels haven't changed significantly other than some seasonal fluctuation. The only well that has dropped noticeably a little bit is MW4, which I believe is right here in the corner. So what we try to do is connect the dots between how does this water table go? Typically, the groundwater table will follow a bedrock surface in its topography. We know we've got this wetland down here, so everything's coming this way. We did a study it was over a couple of years because of COVID hitting it as well. We installed the wells, I believe in 2017, talked with the DEP about how to go about this, and they wanted to have 1 year of groundwater quality data for baseline. This is a requirement. If you go from operating above the groundwater table to below the water table, you're required to monitor for certain volatile, I guess it's all petroleum related, extractable petroleum, EPH hydrocarbons, volatile petroleum hydrocarbons, nitrate, iron, manganese, and then a series of field parameter. So we did that over about a 2 to 3 year period because of the, again, COVID issues. And we finally got our application into the DEP in 2001, November 2001. In fact, that's the last time both me and John were here for a public information meeting before you submit to the DEP. You gotta let town know. We were the only two people that showed up. So we had the informational meeting, got into the DEP's hands, and it's been a year. It took a year almost a year for the DEP to get back to us on this variance, which they did approve. The good thing about, I think I might have been telling Brenda about the after the fact stuff, is that we were able to actually know what's going on real time now, because the elevation of the quarry floor is at elevation 240. And that's the bottom, that's the way it's gonna stand. It's not gonna go any deeper than that. And what we were able to show is all these wetlands were delineated back in 2004, and then we had them done again in, I guess, 19 or 20. And they hadn't, the outline hasn't changed hardly at all along that whole boundary line. The other well, there's only one public drinking water supply well, which is the old Stevens well. That hasn't changed more than a couple of feet since it's been monitored. And of course, like I said, the water level information shows that we really haven't affected any of these groundwater wells either. So the water table's stable. I think the reason that it was confusing to people that they were in the water table was that this rock is very tight, and you don't see a lot of seepage in the walls. You just see this water in the springtime, which, snow melt and rain. So you get rid of it, and then they operate in the dry, and they really don't have to manage water. So that kind of is where we got with the DEP on the variance to go into the water table. And what we since requested is this shaded area. Well, you can almost see right here is where the permit right now is for the quarry. I think initially in 2004, it was a certain size. And then there was a 6 or 7 acre expansion that got it out to this current 27 acre. And I think your 2014 permit allows them to develop 17 acres that are not part of the stockpile area or, the screening operations of stockpile. So the quarry itself, I did a Google Earth, dimensions of it is around, I think, 11 acres right now. So it's still under the, your last permit that was issued. And what we were trying to do is, instead of sending, I guess back in the day, you guys used to get this kind of a document every 2 years.
Right.
And then in 2014, it was changed to just call up our code enforcement, come out
Right.
and we'll take a look. One of the conditions is to do a water level meeting in April or between April and May to make sure you're maintaining this separation of the water table. Well, that's kind of an obsolete condition now. We've got the permit to be in by the DEP to be in the water table. The current permit from the DEP is to do water levels quarterly and to do water quality in I think 3 of the wells twice a year and report every April as to those results. So I drafted a letter and I think we were thinking the same page. I think I had this letter to Chris. He got a letter from Brenda almost the next day saying, hey, we'd like to schedule a site visit. So talked with Brenda and what we thought the best thing to do is just let me explain where we're at, how we got to where we're at today, and then see what you folks might need from us in terms of if there's anything you need in terms of the water table issue, or what we were thinking is going forward. They're not going to expand into this area for probably another 4 or 5 years. They can still operate within their existing permitted zone, but just so that we know, get everybody on the same page, this is where they'd like to go in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. There were a couple of vernal pools that were surveyed in, and there's still one that's being discussed with the state as to whether the determination on that is correct or not. So they have allowed us to go back out for 3 years and do our frog count, egg masses. The pool dries up before the end of June every year, which had been typically, the way IFNW views that is if a pool dries up before July 15th, even if you have a number of frogs that would classify it as a significant vernal pool, because that dries up, the frogs don't have a chance to live anyway. So they kind of take that into consideration. In this case, they may not have taken that into consideration, and they made a finding, and they said, well, give us 3 more years of data and we'll reconsider. So that's what's gonna go on. This year's our last year doing that. If that vernal pool becomes non-significant, the development will go right up to it just the way it is. We're staying 75 feet away from the pool itself, treating it as a wetland. If it is significant, they want us to put some more monitoring instruments out in this area before we cross this old town line here, which is quite close to the existing, where they can go. But that was the line that they said, we'd like you to put these instruments in so you can give us some baseline data on that. A little confusing, I know, and I think it's good. Chris called me and he saw that this was being called to get in front of you folks to go into the water table. I may have missed this, to be honest with you, but I did read, I think this is your current ordinance, where it does say that the groundwater protection, that no excavation may occur within 5 feet of the seasonal water table unless a permit is first obtained from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. So we got that. And that's where I think we just checked that off and said, we're good to go. And because this was after the fact, I guess that made it, it's taken a number of years, I guess, just to kind of get it through the DEP. We may have missed something in terms of coming to you folks about this earlier, but I'm glad we're here now. We can talk about it and then also talk about what you might want to see from us for any expansion. We intend to invite Brenda out every year, give her this water level information with the water quality data that will be supplied to DEP. It's the only kind of glitch is that it's not a comparison of the water table to where the quarry operation is, because we're in the water table. So the quarry floor will not go any deeper than 240. And I think another advantage of having the DEP look at this for the last couple of years is there's a fellow at the DEP named John Hopek, who's been there close to 40 years. Maybe one of the best, there's a few hydrogeologists in the state that have been around quite as long. I worked for one, John Seavey, he retired a few years back. Bob Gerber is another good source. But John Hopek is a very sharp guy, and he's still around. And his finding was, and I think I quoted it in the letter, that there's no impact, there's not anticipated to be any impact, there's no downgrading drinking water users anywhere near here. The wetlands that are nearby, I know have been a concern. I think they're owned by the federal government, actually. It's a cedar bog that's apparently a very sensitive area of sorts in that regard. We've installed a couple of piezometers based on the DEP's request in these areas just to monitor those wetlands a little bit more. And that's why you see just very limited water level data for those piezometers. But I don't anticipate any issues. It's a well-run facility, and I guess we just want to make sure we give you guys what you need going forward. So I guess in our mind, it would be for whatever you think, because I think the other I'll stop talking here in a second. I think the one other thing that I did see in some of the old correspondences was in regards to how going forward, instead of submitting these big applications, we have an inspection, and then there was an October 7th, 2014 letter that says if you want to expand the mineral extraction area, that will require a review and approval from the planning board. So that's the flag that I saw. I said, okay, Chris, we ought to get in front of the planning board and see what they'd like to see. Your typical, use application would, you've got a majority of it already, the tax maps, there's certain information we just didn't want to replicate. I guess we've already got it. And maybe that's what I can work with Brenda more closely on as to exactly what you guys might need to see going forward. We've got plenty of time. They're going to be operating within the limits of what they already had for the permit for another couple of years, but I think they just want to make sure we get this addressed on their end. So it's, I don't think you're going to vote on anything, and maybe you can give me some guidance, but that's really what we're trying to accomplish here, is just.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Joe.
You're citing Article 11 of our ordinance, specifically 2.3F on our copy 64, I believe. No excavation may occur within 5 feet of the seasonal high water table unless a permit is first obtained by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. You have acquired that. Do we get a copy of that documentation? Just reading further in that, if standing water already exists in an excavated area, no further excavation that would result in an increased area of standing water shall be allowed. What you're proposing falls within that stricture?
Yes, the standing water is there in the springtime. And that's what I think it was confusing to a lot of people is, are we even in the water table? But what we have, based on the studies that C.D. Mahar did, there's some cross sections in this variance application that I didn't bring with me today, but it does demonstrate where the 2005 water table map, I think Bob Gerber may have generated that back in 2005, and where the quarry floor is today, we're into that water table. But we're not going to go any deeper because that's really, how the basis of our study was at the depth that it was, and it appears that we have, there are no issues with that. So, I guess I'm not sure how that particular sentence applies to us going forward now that we have this permit to be in the water table. We do want to increase the area by expanding the quarry eventually, but we're not going to make that any more maybe non-conforming in terms of going any deeper into the water. In fact, we may actually, this is more of a knob up in this area, as opposed to, we may be, in this area, we may not actually even be in the water table at that elevation 240. But as far as that's the number we're going to stay at.
Well, along with the DEP's concern about the adjacent wetlands, is part of their review any possible negative impact on neighboring wells?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there really aren't any neighboring wells, but other than the one way over here, the Jeffrey's well, which is owned by, I think that's his son's, maybe going to convert that into an office space at one time. They were thinking about doing that, but other than that, there's no water, groundwater users.
Thank you.
And you're not into any reclaiming, are you, at this time, of area you have?
Oh, no, and I think I saw somewhere in here that, and it may have been for, I thought it was your permit. Because it is a quarry, the rock walls, they stay a wall.
Right.
So the way a lot of this is going to be reclaimed down the road is that you're allowed, the state allows you to let this just naturally fill up the groundwater or rainwater, or become a kind of a man-made pond.
Mhm.
If it's, if you keep it under 30 acres, it's not considered a pond that require, if it's greater than 30 acres, I think they have to provide public access to it. If it's less than 30 acres, that's not required. But no matter how, what the size is, it has to be, a section of it has to be at least a 4-to-1 slope. So if somebody did get in there, they can get out.
Yeah, yeah.
And they like to have it kind of an irregular shape, for down the road if aquatic, life, does, and I'm sure it will. It'll be more of a natural pond itself. So the majority of the quarry itself will be reclaimed as a pond, and any of the overburden that you can seed and mulch will be seeded and mulched in accordance with the regs.
But you haven't done that yet. You're not there yet.
No, there's really nothing to reclaim at this point.
So what do we have to do? That's the question.
I don't know if there's any action that the board needs to take. We just wanted you to be aware. And as I told you, I think a couple of meetings ago, Matt and I have started doing our,
Mhm.
was it biannual inspections? We started
Right.
that today. I have created a database because you have 16 different gravel pits. Seem to all have different conditions and different requirements. So I know when I go out there what I'm looking for. I think in this instance that I can just attach that, we'll be looking for the reports from the DEP. I think you said, what, every 6 months, did you say, or quarterly, or?
At the end of April, typically, the DEP gets a lot of that stuff.
So, and I'm not sure if the DEP sends us a copy of that. I think they're pretty good like that, but if they don't, then certainly the song could provide us with that. I would put that into my database to be looking for that. And I think when an area does become a quarry, it comes under the purview of the DEP a little more. So
Right.
I'm comfortable with this.
I thought didn't you give us a list of, I thought you did give us a
I did.
spreadsheet at one time with all the
I did.
portions.
Yeah, I've been working very hard on that.
Thank you.
So I guess the question that we would have is, in terms of when they get to the point where they will go outside of the limit that, I guess, the 2014 permit that you folks have issued.
Right.
I think in there it says that the size of the quarry would be 17 acres, excluding laydown areas or stockpile areas. So this expansion is about 8 acres that we're talking about. And just, I would think to make sure set the record straight, that would, the permit from you folks would be something close to a 25-acre quarry. And what kind of information you would like to see from us, or if just doing the inspections, because there won't be any change to the operation. It's not the amount of truck traffic or things like that.
I'm not understanding what you're telling me. You're saying right now the permit is for 17 acres?
The permit, there's been 2 permits, I think, issued by the town. The original one in 2004, and then there was an expansion of around 6 or 7 acres. And that one in 2014, and I don't know why it was called that way. The whole site, in terms of the DEP, is a 26-acre site. And in your permit, it's the portion of the that's I think it's condition of approval, July 2nd, 2014. That is allowed to have 17 acres open.
Okay. That's from the town?
Yeah, that's from the town.
Okay.
So at some point, I think that number will need to go up. Even though as we go forward, the 17 acres might be developed here, and we're gonna start going into this 8-acre expansion. It's really, it's all gonna be open, but it's not gonna be operated.
I believe you'd have to come back
Oh, yeah.
to have it
Yeah,
expanded.
I'm trying to figure out what you're asking for.
Well, that's, yeah, we know we wanna come back, it's just how much, and maybe that's, again, I can talk with Brenda about it, but in terms of the repetitive information that you've already got, you want us to give you the whole
Have you added land onto this since you've had your last permit? Have you
No,
bought
but-
more land?
No, they've owned that all along. It's just a matter of,
Hmm.
you know, being part of the quarry. It's always, they've owned all these parcels.
Well, the only thing I would comment on is that, I'm not sure whether, I mean, I assume we would have this information in the record somewhere, but whether we can pull everything out or not, I mean, if we're supposed to be reviewing material, then we're gonna have to have a copy of it, obviously.
So I
So,
think what we
Right.
can do at the time, you know, when the time comes, we can go through what we have, and what would need to be updated.
Yeah.
Probably some documents that don't change. I would expect maybe the stormwater plans and things like that shouldn't change a lot, but in those documents that have changed over the years, I think they would have to submit.
Sure.
So
Okay.
between the two of us, we can put a packet together, and then, if you see anything else you need, then we'll just.
Go from there.
Yeah.
we still have, then we would probably have to go through public hearing and stuff, I guess,
We
wouldn't we?
would.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have to do the whole that part of the
Sidewalk.
process.
yeah, we'd have to have the whole package, even if it's repetitive.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not trying to give you, make it more difficult for you. I'm just saying that we gotta follow what we believe to be the correct process, and also that would be, you know, notifying abutters and having a public hearing and seeing if there's any objections, and, you know, that kind of thing, which is, and I wouldn't expect any, but you never know.
No, and that's fair. And I think that's really kind of when I was talking with Brenda a couple weeks ago, it was almost like a pre-application
Mhm.
hearing of some sort. You know, it's just really to kind of, there's been a lot of things done since anybody's been in front of you folks in terms of getting the permits from the DEP and stuff. So that's kind of what, you've been in that loop, but I don't think anyone's come before to really explain where we're
Yeah,
at.
I don't think so.
So,
Is there a cell tower down there too, or am I thinking some other place?
Well, we had a permit from behind there once,
Mhm.
Yeah, for something,
but it
maybe,
ran out.
oh, they didn't build
And
it, huh?
then there was another one down on the middle road.
Oh, no, I thought in the quarry there.
There was out behind the quarry at one time.
Mhm.
All right, okay. I got myself up.
all right.
Whatever, it's okay.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, MX 207.
Can I just give you a quick outline?
Go ahead, Brenda.
This was, I think we'll do the facility out there. It was permitted in 2007. And for 3 years, a 3-year term. Then it was re-permitted in 2008. And that was permitted for 10 years. And it didn't change much. It was pretty much just to check and see if everything, because I think it was a new concept, and maybe you just wanted to check on it. Unfortunately, it's fallen between the cracks and it hasn't been re-permitted. So we got an application from the property owner to go forward, and we just wanted to know where to start.
So where we are right now, you said it was permitted in 2008 for 10 years. So that would take through 18.
Mhm.
And I think Julie gave you copies of almost everything related to those two, and I'm sure a lot has changed, gosh, what, 15 years, something like that,
I
so.
know some of this will be a little rough because obviously it wasn't me dealing with it at that point. And now it's me and my father who isn't here. but-
Does that mean ownership has changed or what?
No, it's my dad's business.
Oh, okay.
He's in Florida and I'm here to try to
You're the front man.
be the front man. Yeah, you're stuck with me today. but
And
hopefully I
Mr.
can get
Stewart
some
gave
answers.
gave authorization to work. This is Dan, by the way.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
And I now live right next to the truck.
So, so really, this is we're in an expired situation.
It is.
Huh.
It was just one of those things got on board. I mean, I wasn't aware that on site plan reviews that we put expiration dates. So I'm gonna start looking closer at the
I don't know if I don't recall any others. Maybe you guys do. That
Yeah,
happened.
I do have some recollection of
I
this,
mean,
but
not just this one, but I mean,
Yeah.
do you recall any others that there was expiration dates on?
yeah, I think before we had contract zoning, we were doing conditional
Mhm.
permits. And they, for a time, like, I don't know if it was discretionary about the amount of time or if it was a standard amount of years, but the applicant had to come back for renewal, right? And I think
Yep.
there was some review that took place.
Okay.
But I think when we added contract zone to our ordinance, that I think conditional,
I
the
think
conditional,
you're conflating contract zoning with site plan reviews. I mean, contract zoning is so totally different.
right, but I think it's still a site plan review, but we had a conditional
We used to have you do
Conditional
use
uses.
permits. Yeah.
conditional use permit.
And
That-
those
that's what
switched
it
over to
was.
site plan reviews, didn't they? I mean, the
Yes.
terminology.
So, yes.
The terminology.
I mean, it's the same thing, really. I think
Yep.
the terminology. That's what I'm just saying. I think it's not, I'm just saying, I don't think it's contract.
You don't think it's contract zoning?
No, no.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's
it's
not.
contingent, but we don't do that anymore. Conditional.
No, we don't. You do.
They call it
Use.
site plan reviews.
Call it site
Right.
plan review.
Okay,
So it's a terminology.
right. So you said 2007, the original permit?
Well,
2004.
2004,
2004.
For 3
And it was for
years.
3 years.
and then it was renewed, so like a little bit of a lapse there, 2008 for 10 years. So this one lapsed in 2018,
2018.
in July of that year.
Match up your date, you know.
Yeah, that doesn't,
You better know something, I guess. That's not saying anything.
And just a point to make here about the wording of those conditional use approvals. Approval is dependent upon and limited to. Approval is dependent upon and limited to. Interesting insertion of that language to make it precise as to what is permitted and what is not permitted. Just a statement.
So the question is, do we have to go through the process again? I guess, isn't that the question?
I believe that to be true. I just like to point out that it is an existing business
Mhm.
that worked
Mhm.
very hard and very good neighbors. We don't ever hear any complaints. Their season is coming up. So
Actually, last year, this was our best month of the year.
And as soon as I realized that it had been, I contacted the property owner, and he was right there with all the paperwork that I needed. And they're very anxious to do whatever needs to be done.
Should see if that's fake or something she can find.
yeah. For some reason, I do have in my notes from March 3rd, 2021, that conditional use was removed for MX 207. So I believe they did come before the planning board.
I didn't see that in the file, really.
Do you remember?
I mean,
anything?
I think,
No, not at all.
you don't remember that?
No.
Conditional use. Well, you know, we could check the minutes. Those should be available. So March 3rd, 2021,
We can look at that.
to see, you know, what was, Motown, okay, good. See what was discussed then.
And sorry for the interruption as well. I remember we did a sidewalk there some time back, and I can't recall the details as to, well, when and what exactly we're looking at that time. You recall that? We're traipsing around the.
Yeah, I remember.
I remember doing a site walk up there, and I think it was the second time they come in for a permit, but I can't be positive.
No, my apologies.
I remember going up there also. I mean, your memory's right, correct on that. Sure.
So if you remove the conditional use permit, does that mean that they're just an existing entity that can just go forward without permitting? I mean, what does that mean?
It's permitted
It
with no
means
expiration.
the permit follows the land like most of them. There's not a time limit.
Okay.
We would need some
But-
documentation to
Right, but I,
support that.
again, I don't know if it's in the meeting minutes or.
2021.
Yeah, we should check that.
That's in the commercial zone?
That is commercial zone, yeah.
So the question goes through my mind is whether we need to go through public hearing and all that business. If we're going to I mean, I haven't heard of any, well, I wouldn't hear anyway, but I don't know of any complaints made or anything about the business, ongoing business. You get quite a few people there on weekends and stuff, don't you?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, we do our best to keep it a self-contained thing, even as far as the locals who feel like they live close enough to just ride to it. I stop them on the wrist and say, come here, you ride here only, not in or out. So yeah, we try to just keep it all right there, and yeah, definitely try to keep peace with the neighbors.
Were there any conditions on use of fire rescue or anything? I mean, I noticed the fire chief's here.
I think he has some thoughts that he'd like to share.
What are we technically calling this business?
Oh,
Here's my thought.
What land use, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it did require a conditional use permit, which unfortunately has been allowed to expire. Now, we no longer issue conditional use permits, we have contract zoning. And as our zoning is inclusive, if we don't have a name or definition
No,
for business,
This is under site plan review, Kelly.
yeah,
It's not under contract zoning.
that's what I'm saying, is because the name that it has, if it's not, we don't have a definition for it, it's excluded from our zoning. So it would therefore require a contract zoning.
oh, I see what you're saying, but I don't, what,
That's how I looked at it too.
okay, but what do we permit? We must have permitted under some land use in the
That's
past.
what I was looking for, and I didn't see
Maybe
it.
a recreation facility? Or,
That's what I'm thinking,
Mhm.
which just requires a site plan review. But what is it called?
Let's see.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to make a note that Matt has to leave by 7:30, so if we could give him some time.
My replacement just showed up, so we're good.
well,
Okay,
Oh,
all
Well,
right.
let's- Well, go ahead if you want to speak.
I don't want to, but I will. I did prepare a letter that I will pass out.
Oh, wow.
The information that I was given to review concerns me because I don't believe the conditions that were initially put on them have been met.
Okay,
One is the emergency medical services. Our understanding in someplace in all that paperwork, it says that when they race, they'll have 2 ambulances on site, one to transport, and one is required by their sanctioned racing events, and that is not always met, in my opinion. I can't say that I was there and noticed or observed, but there's definitely been times where I have a strong opinion that that was not met.
Okay.
There's a very large concern with the amount of recreational vehicles that are in the facility for not only fire suppression, but also access to the facility and to throughout the complexes to where people may or may not get injured. And
I'm
then,
sorry, were you just referring, you said so many RVs, you were saying if the RVs were too close to the track, if somebody came off the track, they would hit an RV or hit a person?
no, the RVs are too close together, so if one catches fire, we're probably gonna burn 15.
I got you, I got
So
you.
these
Okay,
are
so
RVs,
it's a
okay.
density issue then of
It's
the
a density,
RVs.
and it's also a travel lane, like,
Mhm.
we probably can get our ambulance and our
Oh, yeah, I
forestry
got you.
truck through, but if something catches fire, we're probably not getting a fire truck there.
Mhm. Good to know. Good to know.
And then the last one is the security of our personnel responding to that facility on the weekends where they put upwards to 4,000 people in that facility.
Wow.
You can, I wish, certainly what I was told last fall. But a lot of that is my opinion. I don't know how to prove it. It's not facts, but there is certainly, in my opinion, a burden to a Dayton and Lyman taxpayer
approve their ambulance is transporting somebody from that facility to Maine Med 90% of the time, which is a 3-hour transport.
But that's, and isn't that a recent change? Or not a recent change, but did you used to go to Southern Maine before? Or is it, or are you just saying because of that
Ever
type of
since I've been
injury?
a paramedic, any trauma goes to Maine Medical Center.
Any trauma then? Not, yeah, it's not
Yeah,
like
which
a,
is
which-
90% of the.
Do you have any kind of a record from the fire department, how many trips you made there with an ambulance?
22 last year
Hmm.
and over 70 in the last 5 years.
Would you recommend that they contract with like AMR to have them on site for their,
So they do, they use Northeast Mobile Health. And the times I was there last year, Northeast had at least one ambulance and another crew running on their Gator, but always seemed to rely on us or the other mutual aid departments, including Waterboro, Hollis, and Life Flight of Maine to complete the transport.
has there been a life flight?
Yeah.
How many? Just one or?
Was that Life Flight?
One last year,
One last year.
or the year.
Must have been a fairly serious incident then.
Yeah, I think we had like 4 patients at the same
Wow.
time.
okay.
But there was no, I don't know if we had any conditions in the previous approval of number of ambulances required.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry, where do you find the requirement for having two? You mentioned one is
There-
from their
There was
association.
something in, I believe, the original proposal that they gave in 2004 that said they would have adequate ambulances to not be a burden on the local EMS services. That's where it also talks about transporting to Bedford and Sanford, which happens occasionally, but not the typical transport. And my understanding of their venue is they always have to have an ambulance there. So to be able to handle any transports out of their own facility, they'll have to have a second.
Or stop the race.
Or
Is that correct?
Yeah, we have an ambulance on site.
So if you had an incident, then unfortunately somebody was injured and they were, put in an ambulance and taken off to the hospital, then you have to stop unless you had a,
Yeah, so normally we have 2 ambulances, so if 2 people were to come together and have a crash, and one transports, the other one would be being tended to while we would come to that person, which I'm surprised by that number. I didn't realize it was that high.
the previous years, it ebbs and flows, and I think it ebbs and flows, and this is
Yeah.
another part of what I say here in a minute, is it ebbs and flows based on Northeast being able to staff the second ambulance.
yeah.
And as we're getting into a time when we're all struggling with staffing, I'm very concerned that they're not gonna have 2 ambulances.
But as it stands right now, just counting the expiration and stuff, if they have one ambulance on site, they can run. Right? And so then if they have an incident and that ambulance takes off, they gotta stop, right? Until a second ambulance comes?
Right, well, and I think just to clarify from my point on is, if they only have one ambulance there, they're not stopping the race, they're calling us.
Okay, I don't like that. I mean, well, from a point of view of taxpayer, I mean, but you have to respond because it's an incident within our area.
We're
You
gonna
don't have a
respond
choice on
every
that.
time they call.
Yeah, I mean, that's what your job is, what you're doing, obviously. Okay.
Less than
Regardless of what happens tonight, sorry, I shouldn't jump.
No,
Regardless of what happens tonight, we will continue to respond.
Absolutely.
I know that this was brought up. Did you speak with my brother?
Uh,
Or would it have
Last
been you? I
year?
don't know, yeah. Last year,
Yeah, last
Last year
year
in
when
the
we were
fall.
there twice before noon time on a Friday morning.
Oh, boy.
last year, so that would, you remember who you spoke with?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's,
Doesn't look like that and whatever. So is it an old guy or?
No, you're right.
Okay, yeah. So that was the first that I heard that this was becoming an issue to address.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, I mean, to me, obviously you're paying taxes, okay? And you're bringing in, but there's no, as far as the town is concerned, the only revenue we receive from this is, I guess, whatever the property taxes are. Is that correct in my thought? We're not getting, I mean, if you, let's say you have 4,000 people and you charge admission, I don't know if you do, but I assume you must charge some admission. You make,
I do want to say that we have never had even half of that.
Well, anyway, so whatever number of people you get in there, it's not helping or hurting the town one way or the other unless there's an incident. Because, I mean, you pay property taxes, I hope you pay an awful lot because you're probably very highly valued, but maybe not. In any case, there's no burden on the town until we have an incident. And then it can be a burden, especially, but if it happened, how many times you said 20?
22.
That seems like quite a bit. How many events did you have last year, roughly? 50 or?
No, I'd have to look at this. I'd have to look at the schedule.
I think you've got 8 or 9 scheduled for this coming year.
And some of those
Oh.
are both 3 days events, so that really would mean more closer to like 15.
So that's,
Yeah,
So they have events on, plus they
We have-
have people go out and rent the track, they can race on it,
oh. So they're
practice.
they're
and-
not sure saying, so that some of those responses could be for people practicing?
Absolutely.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
They only have the private ambulance company when they have their sanctioned race, is my understanding.
And they're like, any business that you encourage in town. I mean, when the spectators come in town, they stop and buy gas and they
Yeah.
stop and buy a sandwich
That's when
and that's why you encourage businesses.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I feel like
So 2 questions I have. Number one, does your business's insurance require the presence of EMTs for your operation, be it a sanctioned event or rubbing practice runs?
I can't answer this with too much confidence, but I know that on the race days it does.
Mhm.
It's also, I can't answer the insurance
Okay.
question, sorry.
Just
But I know
curious
that
there.
it's a good question.
It is a good question.
And then there's also, speaking of the practice, your insurance for, this could be considered an attractive nuisance, even though you got a gate up front. Someone with an ATV can cut through the woods and run the trails. When the place is officially closed, does the insurance cover that? What would the liability be to the town if someone got injured, been killed from trespassing on your property?
I don't know, that'd be a town liability. But I think,
Brenda,
I don't know a lot about this subject. I apologize if this sounds ridiculous, but they are a New England sanctioned activity. And I'm sure that being sanctioned, there must be a lot of requirements to fall under that umbrella. And, maybe it would be good for the town to have, I don't know, copies of that, I'm not sure. And I know Dan says he's not strong administratively, he's kind of under the wire here.
coming in, yeah.
Right, but I do believe, reading through some of the notes, I know Patty went out in like 2015, and I don't know why, but she made a note at the time that they were also racing go-karts, but she thought that probably fell under the purview of the motorcycles as well, so she did keep an eye on it. I do think this business has grown a lot, and maybe even if the conditions were removed, I don't know if that is true, if the planning board has the jurisdiction to still review the business. I do think I'd like to see that happen only because it's I know Dan doesn't think so, but it's a big business from my point of view. I mean, there's a lot of activity,
You
a
can bring
lot
a lot
of
of
people.
people to the area.
Yes.
So I know if you look at the property lines, we're surrounded by Waterboro a lot, which I know that those people right there, definitely they do benefit from most from it, but just the area itself, we do have people traveling from hours away as far as,
they follow a lot of people up through their Massachusetts plates that go up there too, they come from quite a ways
they do, yeah.
to use your track.
so it seems to me you got a couple issues. One is you got an expired permit, right? So if you go by the book, they shouldn't be operating. Correct? So that's one issue. But their existing business, they've got events planned I guess, routine events planned in April. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is it's apparently costing the town services from the fire department. And that's not covered in the existing expired permit, I don't think, is it? I mean, we're not specified, apparently we didn't specify in the expired permit that we had to have 2 ambulances there paid for by the applicant. So there are 2 issues. So it sounds to me like the planning board has to go back and look at this thing all over again. But is there any way to provide an avenue without violating the ordinances or whatever to allow the applicant to continue operation for a period of time until we can go through the process? Well, as long as they meet certain additional requirements, such as possibly having 2 ambulances for starters.
I'd like to see the board consider that because even, I told Dan tonight, it can take weeks
Oh,
because
yeah.
of the hearings and the
Right.
site visits. But I do think the board does have the authority. This isn't something that you just caught them doing one day,
Oh, no.
we've had conditions over the years
Right.
that, I think you would have the authority to extend that for, I don't know, 6 months or whatever, and give everybody time to get on the same page and get it cleaned up and move forward. I would hate to see an interruption. These people that go here follow a circuit. This
Right.
isn't something they just do once a summer.
Well, let me ask one other thing here too. It seems to me that if it's legal, and I don't know, I hope it is, if we say we voted, for example, to extend the existing permit for a certain period of time, subject to some new conditions, which we could put in. But then the only other issue that we haven't talked about yet is that the fire chief said there was there can be a lot of RVs there. So it seems like there ought to be, if we do
So
vote to extend, we should have something that would cover either the number of RVs or
Distance between
distance,
them.
or some kind of wording that would enable the fire department to be able to do their job if they get called.
I think that's important.
Yeah, which, we don't want to see anybody get killed there or have a big fire that burns up
Absolutely not, no.
a bunch of RVs and causes a mass casualty in Lyman. That'd be good news, wouldn't it?
One of the things, we've gotten a permit that's expired, 3 years, 5 years?
2018.
5 years.
But remember, there was also COVID in there.
Yep.
and-
Right, there was COVID in there.
But that's
And
5
then
years. Long time.
We've
It's a
also
long
done away with the,
time.
conditional use and went to contract zone. As you've mentioned a number of times, this is a growing business. The conditions that may have been put in there might now be superseded by other things. I would like to see, personally, I'd like to see a contract zone with a review every so many years so that systems can be addressed. I think the fire chief brings up some excellent concerns.
Yeah, the parking one.
One of the things, provide water for fire suppression. That is also one of in the old contract of conditional use. Do they have not a dry well, but a hydrant from the pond next door? Was that something you guys would have to lay line to?
There is no dry hydrant on that facility. The closest would be the Sarabon Road, actually at Hollis, and then the pressurized water hydrants in East Waterville.
That's
That's
not
pretty far away.
a viable pond that you could draw off from?
I believe that's on a different property. I believe that's on Gorham Sand and Gravels.
Oh, okay.
They do have a pond
They-
there that they use to water the track.
Does it have sufficient water for multiple engine response?
I don't know the dimensions of it, to be able
Yeah.
to do the calculations and help in the depth of it.
Right, so that would have to be addressed. The proximity of the RVs, you may want to develop a plan for having them so far apart and the area staked
That
out.
is one thing we've been working on, making some changes to create more
Yeah.
parking area to allow people to spread out.
The other concern is the number of ambulance runs. It almost looks like, and I could be totally wrong, that the income the town receives through the taxation is superseded by the cost of the ambulance runs. I know they are expensive.
Do those get issued to insurance companies?
Is there some billing of some sort?
The
Some-
patient is billed when they're transported. Yes. But in my own opinion, I don't believe that payment outweighs the fact that the remainder of the citizens of Dayton and Lyman no
paying
longer
for it.
have an ambulance.
Right.
Right.
And
Protecting
the last thing we want to do is develop a situation where, because of cost, we don't want you guys to charge X amount for a run, that someone gets injured at your facility, and for fear of having another charge, you don't call the ambulance when it's needed. So we gotta figure out some way to make it so that you guys are well covered and the citizens of Lyman are well covered.
Could I just ask, what's your season times now? I mean, when do you start, and when do you close, or do you close?
Last year, we were able to open May 21st.
And how long will you open? Until,
Yeah, like.
Till it snowed?
October, mid-October.
Do you expect to open this season about the same time?
Well,
When is your first
sorry, I
schedule?
meant to say March 21st, sorry. So normally we would be open right now.
Oh.
This month, like, everybody sits cooped up all winter, and I'm getting a million messages a day, when you open, when you open. So I just have not really been answering those. So typically, yeah, we would be open right now.
When's your first scheduled event?
May
Sanctioned.
6th or May 7th, that Saturday.
Okay.
so being open right now, people just come and practice, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. You said you have RVs there.
Yeah.
Are these overnight guests? Do they spend the night?
Yeah,
there?
they can show up. So if you were to drive up, you got a lot of times husband, wife, kid, they'll come up from Mass, like you said, and stay Friday night and ride Saturday or.
So would this be classified, I mean, is that the conditional permit? Did it include overnight camping? Because it is essentially camping, and you providing water and sewage for
No, we
those
don't have
people?
that. It's just a dirt lot. It's a parking lot.
So they have to be self-contained?
Right, yeah. We went through with the state years ago. I was asking for that about this because we brought up. I think it was like there was a consecutive nights thing. Other than that, it was everything is just like a Walmart parking lot, but we're a dirt parking lot. So they can show up. It's self-contained. We don't have water, no hookups, no power, and
No power, and do you charge a fee for them to stay there?
we charge a fee for them to get in for the weekend to be there for the event. They can stay overnight for the event.
Okay. So with the increase in participants too, I wonder if a traffic study was ever done. Now, there must be a lot of traffic around there, and that's it's not a big super highway there. So we probably,
It's 202.
yeah,
That's a pretty busy road.
it's busy.
It's-
Well,
And as far as the growing business, that is great. It definitely goes with the economy.
Right.
And somehow dirt biking became more popular after COVID.
oh, yeah.
Something
you can do outside.
Yeah,
Mm.
the outside stuff, and obviously I'm hoping that stays, but
You don't
when
know.
money gets tight, the first thing to go is no more gear.
Okay, so what's a good compromise here? Can we come up with a compromise? Who's got a question? Go ahead.
Ben Harris, I'm the deputy fire chief, and sorry, I was at a different budget meeting earlier, but, from my perspective, I've been there at night sometimes. They've been great to work with as far as like, we communicate better than we've ever communicated before. We know when the races are. It doesn't, we don't add more, we don't have money in our budget to add more staffing for race weekends or anything like that. So the ambulance is gone, the fire chief said, for 3 hours. My big concern is like, I mean, people do have fires in their fire rings when they're camping and that kind of stuff. And I am very concerned about a fire going through there and taking out, a row of 50 campers or something like that by the time we get in there. And when those things happen, my biggest concern is when that fire happens, I believe everybody that's there is going to get in their trucks and drive out as we're trying to drive our fire trucks in. So one thing that I would like to see added is some type of second exit or widening the entrance that leaves a fire lane for access to the RV area at least.
Is there something?
That's not gonna happen tomorrow.
No.
I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying, like, we need to work towards something like that.
That's very doable.
So what kind of is there a compromise that can be made that will allow them to operate this year? I mean, I think if Brenda was correct, if we go through the whole process of site plan review, which includes public hearing and
Looking at 2.5 months.
yes, and that's assuming everything is, we asked for it comes in right away, which might take a while. So, I mean, is there a compromise that we can make to that would help satisfy the fire department's need, questions and concerns.
Could the applicant come back, say 2 weeks from now with some plans addressing the fire department's concerns? And we can make a determination at that point in time for the continuation of the permit. RV location.
As soon as possible would be good. I don't know, is 2
Mhm.
weeks the next time you guys have a meeting?
That's right.
Yeah, it's
It's twice a month,
22nd?
first.
So what, your first event's the 8th?
The 6th, but. like I
Sixth.
said,
the 19th. The
this month
19th
right
would be
now,
our
we're
next.
already halfway through. For us last year was our best month of the entire season, so.
Well, the 19th is our next meeting. I don't know, I mean,
So,
What do you
I
think?
would think one of the things that would be nice to know is how many RVs you have space to park in a reasonable distance.
Right.
You know, is it 20? Is it 50? Is it 200? What is it? I think that would be nice to know.
Yeah.
And then the access to get in and out of there, is there enough room to get a fire truck through there? And I think those are probably two of the most important things you know.
We may have to put new conditions on there.
Did the original conditional use permit also include the using of a temporary campground? Campground, that's another thing that we gotta take into consideration.
Okay, but that is, I would think that would be as part of the re-review of the whole thing. I mean,
Exactly, that's,
I was just looking, what can we do now to assist this
Right.
applicant
So you
and
keep
give
his
him a
business.
date so he can keep his business running and also satisfy.
I mean, this has been going on for years, and it's
Yeah.
gotten bigger and bigger over the years.
exactly.
And so I think the bigger thing is we need a commitment that we're gonna work towards
Oh, yeah.
a means to make things a little bit safer. I will say, I have been in the little shop there talking to your dad, and I did notice the state license from DHHS for, I think it's called a temporary campground or something like that. Like, I didn't take a picture and, like, it doesn't, it's not outside of our purview, and we're not, inspectors or anything like the fire department, but they did follow whatever requirements there were, or appeared to me that there was a license that gave them some type of ability to have a campground there from the state, but that doesn't mean the state's talking to the town and vice versa.
Exactly, because we have our own,
Correct.
and it requires a site plan review.
One of the things that I read in the initial application permit was that motocross racing is just as, it's the same risk as a high school football game or something along those lines. I would say, I've done standbys at football games. We've never taken a patient from a football game, but we are taking lots of people from the crowd, like from the track, right? I did reach out to some other EMS agencies that cover other places on the New England circuit. I called 3 or 4 different ambulance services, and they're all struggling with the same thing. They're short on staff. The private company that goes in there doesn't have staff. They're working it out. There was one race, I think, last year where we did alternate they had 2 ambulances there, or they had 3 ambulances there, and they would take, the private service would take one transport, and we would take the second one, and back and forth. We have worked out a communication plan with them that I think should probably be written into a conditional use permit that requires, some type of formal notification from the track to the fire department a week ahead of time. So we know that if we don't have a paramedic working and it's a paramedic call, either we use the Northeast paramedic or we'll call Waterboro or Hollis that day to go to that call, because, we don't do that anymore now. That was something that had been tried to work out. However, that put a burden on Waterboro and it wasn't in their town anymore. It put a burden on Hollis and it wasn't in their town anymore. So we've tried those things, and, now Waterboro is short an ambulance and there's no paramedic around for
Holy
for
cow.
those kinds of things. So it is a complicated issue and it's not gonna be solved in one night. I guess.
No, we gotta talk about.
And, no, I just want to answer your question real quick. I do believe that they should be able to operate moving forward. I do believe that they should address our concerns here in front of you. But I also do believe that they're a good business to work with and that they're going to be willing to work with us.
That's a,
It's been my impression, working with both Dan and his father, that they want to do the right thing, as long as they know what it is. So,
Okay.
I mean, now that they know, I mean, they'll address it. It's just, That's why I think it's a good time for a review so that they know.
Right.
So can we encourage a dialogue between the department and the business over the course of the next couple of weeks, just maybe an overall?
I'll probably have you guys, my brother is, he's a lifeguard paramedic as well. He'd be a little bit better with talking their language as far as
Okay.
some of that stuff, but,
And I think it's just the perfect storm as to how this all came.
Yeah.
It's all hit right here. Didn't mean to blindside you guys by any means. I know I probably did.
How big of a lane do you need for your trucks?
Say that
How
again.
wide of a lane do you need for your trucks?
Each truck's about 9 feet wide.
So need at least.
You're looking for
12 feet.
12 feet, 14 feet, 12?
Yeah, 12 to 14.
And you need a place to turn.
But place to turn, place for 2 trucks to pass, because if we're hauling water.
Yep.
And not land, I mean, we do a better job at our tactics these days than we had. But, yeah, I mean, the last thing we want to do is send 4 fire trucks down one of their roads and never get them back up.
They have a great pump at their pond that they showed us the pump one day, great, but the fittings don't align with, like, they can turn on a pump at their pond, but it doesn't connect to what we have, right? So there could be some easy ways
Oh,
to
adaptive.
take that pump
Yeah,
and make it so it would connect to a fire department connection,
And then you could,
Yeah, that's easy enough.
right? That's a few $100s of fittings, and it could probably work very well and take some planning, right?
My big concern right now is the legality of it. The permit is expired. It would take one person to file a complaint. I don't have a problem with your business, by the way. I'm just looking out for the residents of the town. How do we know that it's unpermitted? In my business, once you know something, you know it. You can't not see it.
well, that's what I was saying, because is there, if we can, without, and obviously we got to go forward here on this thing, but is there any way we can take a vote tonight that would allow them to,
Conditional use permit?
no, just take a vote that would allow the business to continue operating, subject to a couple of conditions that would lead us down the correct path. And then we're gonna have to go back through the whole process, which we acknowledge is gonna take about 2 or 3 months.
Easy.
Time we put in the whole thing and get the public hearing and notify the abutters and do da, da, da. I mean, because we have to follow the ordinance. So is there any way we can do that to solve this thing tonight with a motion?
So you're saying, can Brenda issue a temporary permit for a short amount of time?
Yeah, so I don't know that's in the ordinance, but I
I'd like to
think we
see
got to
it
authorize that.
vote and-
Well, we'll have to vote on it, but
And what I could do is run it by the attorney in the morning. If he said absolutely not,
But-
then I'll call Dan and say.
the
But
big
I
thing
think that's
is,
the best thing to do.
if we do this, he has to be moving forward with the application.
Oh, yeah.
And the first thing we'd like to see is something for the fire department, so they can get in there, the road, and maybe the fittings to hook up to your trucks.
and the fittings is, as he said, a pretty simple fix. The roads is something that I'm actually already working on.
Yeah.
So they are definitely things we can.
And then the other thing would be, how many campers do you have in there and the distance between them?
Right.
I mean, we come up with a distance that would be satisfactory to everybody, and I mean, I was just trying to help you along, get moving here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And really, if you've ever been in there, I was in there not too long ago, and it's impeccable. It's like a park in there. It's
Yeah.
not just junk piled everywhere. It's really nice.
It's nice.
They've done a very good job.
Okay.
And I would also just remind you, the 2 ambulances on race days.
And 2 ambulances on race day.
Right.
Why don't we just write down
Race
quickly
day or sanctioned?
what our conditions are, and give them a temporary.
Those
Yeah.
days are always things.
We can do this or not, I don't know.
Here we want the amount of campers and distance between them.
There should be clarity in the conditional use permit when you get it, as far as like, it just says there'll be an ambulance on site. Like, and that's a condition of the races,
2
but it's
ambulances on
not
race
clear
day.
if it's on practice days or on race days.
So what does the fire department recommend? 2 ambulances on race day. What about practice days and stuff? Including-
I want to learn more.
Okay,
I mean, if they're practicing with 3 or 4 people on the track, I
no,
don't need an ambulance, right? But if they have practices where you hold and you've got
but at least on,
30,
people the
40.
track,
On race
maybe we can
day.
talk.
yeah, okay.
But in spectators, right? But definitely for tonight, on their race days, 2 ambulances and 1 that will be transported to the rest of the facility.
One of those 2.
Should you require a certain level of certification of the people working the ambulances?
I believe the New England, or whatever the racing group is, requires 1 paramedic.
Is that right? Okay.
I believe, from the other agencies I talked to, they kind of said that was something that was required, but not.
And the reason why I hesitate at that was, there's days I can't guarantee that level here. So I don't want to put something that.
Put a burden that's.
that I can't
That's
do.
not practical.
So,
What do you got, Don?
Oh, I got, what I written down is 2 ambulances on race day, one with the ability to transport. And then, do we want to specify, I would say distance between RVs subject to fire department approval? I mean, you guys could tell them,
And we'd like a
With the
designated
access.
lane for the fire trucks.
Yeah.
And we'd like you to get the fittings so you can hook up to the fire
Mhm.
trucks in case something happens.
Yeah, I'll get information before I leave and get the details on what those fittings would be.
yeah, I mean,
It's only open when they're racing.
It's only open when they're open, right?
right. Right, you don't lock the gate at night, do you? Does that gate stay open
When we have people there,
when it's occupied?
we do not lock the gates.
I would make that, we can talk about that and figure out, work it out, but I would make that a conditional use requirement.
You would want it
is
locked?
there anything else?
Okay.
It's
yeah,
under
yeah,
the condition they move forward with the
We don't want.
And
You know, it's.
okay, let me read something and we'll see if this will do it. Okay, I would make a motion, okay, if this works, for the planning board to issue a temporary permit for MX 207 to continue operation subject to the following conditions. 1, on that there be 2 ambulances on race day, one of which is able to transport any victims to a trauma center. Second would be that the distance required between RVs would be subject to approval by GMFR. 3, that there be a designated lane open for fire trucks to go in and out of the facility. And 4, that MX 207 provide fittings that are able to hook up from their pond hydrant to GMFR equipment. And then I guess a fifth one would be that the applicant, MX 207, works in good faith to submit a updated permit for this operation. And I'm going to put a time on that,
I
but
need to put time on it.
and we have it, well, what is practical? What time limit should we put on that they should submit by?
I would think that the temporary permit could run,
I would say no more than 6 months.
I was gonna say, yeah, and that gives you the season, right, Dan, pretty much?
But during this temporary permit, we expect you to move forward
Actively.
and be active and try to re-up this. Get it taken care of.
We should have a permit, something in process, you know.
And so when you say that, because I know that their original permitting process included the stormwater plan.
Thanks,
and
Matt.
the noise plan and
Well-
all of that. Do you need that again, or is
Well,
that-
I don't feel we need that again. I don't know about the rest of the board because it really hasn't changed any since then. They haven't added land to it. I
Okay.
mean, as far as topographical, they change tracking there now and then, right? With the loader. I mean, so you're not gonna have the same topography.
The elevation,
I mean, the bottom of the pit will be the same, but
In
They
the
make
big
different-
picture, no, I mean, we may make what was a tabletop into a double, which is
right.
just a different type of John.
Yeah.
So we've been in the same layout since, for the most part, pretty much the same layout since '04.
Right, but you just change the hills now and then.
Correct, yeah.
I know that, but as far as the bottom of the pit, it's the same level.
So then really, I mean, they've submitted the application itself. They've paid the fee.
Yep. And so I think the big thing we need is for like the RVs, the distance between them. We'd like to know how many RVs are in there, or the max you're gonna have.
That could be subject to GMFR, maybe.
There should be a standard for the distance between, I just don't know.
But you can find that out. I mean, you know.
I know that you need to have one porta potty for every 50 people who are gonna be there for more than 4 hours. For another event.
Okay, I don't,
But that's not necessarily, I'm just saying, like, there's a standard for everything. it might be
Right.
like-
Right, yeah.
So
We don't
Dan,
need-
is there a
yeah.
specific area of the facility that is dedicated just to RVs? I mean, can you tell us, is it, how big that area would be?
Yeah, if you got
Yeah.
a 300 by 300 area.
No, because like a lot of people, say you show up with the truck, I mean, the whole thing is, it's a race and it's competitive, but really it's all for fun and it's a social aspect. So
Sure.
if you have a camper and you have a truck, but this is what you like to do on weekends, you're allowed to park with each other. So it's not really camper dedicated, trucks dedicated.
So maybe you should think about having a place for RVs and a place for regular parking. Because if you're gonna have space between the RVs, you can't put a truck in the space because it kind of takes away from the whole reasoning for the space.
There may need to be a plan.
I mean, does that
We
make
should have a
sense?
plan
Yeah,
on.
I don't know that we,
You
Yeah.
guys own Cooks Brook, or whatever that other road is there, right? That Cooks Brook Road.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're getting a little over, I mean, I think that's all good, but let's just try to, I would suggest, if we're gonna extend this permit, let's just try to say, okay, what does the applicant have to do now before they can operate to make this, to extend it with a good faith effort going forward to submit a new application, and then they can work with Brenda, who can work with us to say, okay, is this what we think is needed?
So is the application that they submitted, is that not complete? I guess I just need to know what you need.
That's, we need to go through the steps and
Right.
It was
say
just
whether,
a,
and it's no longer conditional. This will be a permit that will be everlasting, right?
yes, yeah.
What we do next.
Well, it's a site
Is it
plan review. It's a
recreational?
site plan
Review.
Gave us this thing here. It's in the file. I
See,
think.
now we gotta qualify, classify it. We got a recreation facility with a campground.
Kelly,
We're getting past.
No,
Just trying to get this.
it might not be a campground. We gotta figure it out because the state says overnight not.
They're saying, state paperwork says it is a temporary campground. That was, which page was that?
I guess at this point, I just want to know what is a complete application so that you can do your notification and your site visit and everything. I mean, we need to do our part of it.
Right.
And
So we've got all the boundary survey, we have all that, nothing's changed. So,
Stormwater management, we have that.
couldn't we just put that together in a package, what we
So
have?
you want me to borrow from
And-
another
Yeah.
application?
again, I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing we're gonna need is like the survey with a layout of the fire road, the dedicated fire road. I'd like to see an RV parking area, I don't know about the rest of the board.
No, I agree.
Yes.
And I would like to see a regular parking area for cars, but you leave room for the fire trucks to get to the RVs.
And do you need that, you consider it complete so that we can move forward, or do you need that as we go along?
Well, I would suggest that if we could extend this expired permit for 6 months.
Right.
Subject to the minimum number of conditions, and then with a good faith effort that they're gonna proceed with doing the formal application with all the information, which will take us a couple of months to go through, time we do the public hearing and all that. They can still operate under the temporary authorization. And then, and you can check with the lawyer to make sure if that's okay tomorrow, or when you get a chance. And then we can proceed in 2 paths here. We won't shut them
Right.
down, but we won't put the fire department in a situation where they're gonna have a crisis here, hopefully. when they
But-
start operating.
To be a complete permit, we're gonna need all that
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. We're gonna need all
Before
that
we can
stuff.
have a public hearing. before
Oh,
we
yeah,
do
because
anything
otherwise
else.
people, I mean, there may be,
Call it complete before we.
Correct.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that's why I want to know what you want, so that we can do that. We
Right.
we don't want to be doing this at the fourth and fifth month.
No, we
Right,
don't.
no.
We
And,
just don't.
and the sooner he gets that stuff in, I mean, then we'll go through it, and if we think of anything else, or see anything else, we'll be right on it.
And I guess that's what I'd like to know, if I put together what I think you want, and then you take a look at it and say, but I need this and this.
Right.
may I repeat my motion?
Yes, you may, Don.
Yes,
I make a motion that the planning board extend a temporary permit for 6 months to MX 207 to continue operations, subject to having 2 ambulances on site on race day, one of which has the ability to transport a patient to the nearest trauma center. That the distances that they specify distances between RVs that would be subject to GMFR approval, whatever that number is.
So Don, I think that one we can take out, we'll get that on the,
You want to take that out?
we'll get that on the regular permit.
Delete,
On the site
Retract
plan
that.
review. Yep,
retraction, that they provide a designated lane for fire trucks and equipment, and that MX 207 provide fittings to hook up from their pond to GMFR equipment. Would that be sufficient?
But deleting the
Change
RV,
it to October 31st.
I'm sorry?
Change the expiration of the temporary permit to October 31st. Because if you say 6 months, it's going to be the beginning of October.
yeah.
It expires.
It cuts into a season.
Yeah,
Modifying the motion to make it expiring October 31st of 2023.
and do we want to delete the reference to RVs? Because I thought,
We have a motion on the floor.
Well, wait a second, let's say.
We haven't completed
It
the
hasn't
motion,
been
have we?
seconded, so it's got to be brought up for discussion once it's seconded.
Okay, I'll second it. Any discussion?
Do we want to delete the RV reference? Because I thought one of
We
the
did.
concerns,
I-
well,
Oh, I'm
Well,
sorry.
do we want to do that?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
should-
we'll
should
address
there
The
be
problem
some-
is, Joe, is they got events scheduled
Right.
for the next few days,
Mhm.
next
a month,
month,
a little less than a month.
Less than a month, yes.
less than a month.
What does the fire department
Well-
think about that?
Well, if it helps, this first race isn't really gonna be much of a turnout, so.
That's
I
it.
think having a 12-foot dedicated space would be a great first step.
12 foot between RVs?
No, a 12-foot access for fire trucks.
Okay,
Okay, that's not addressing the RV.
Correct. No,
Okay.
we can worry about, like, again, this has been going on for years.
Okay.
We've, I mean, the difference between negligence and gross negligence, but like, we're working towards a solution.
Okay, okay, so you would be comfortable with not specifying a distance between RVs at this time?
At this
As
time.
long as there's a designated lane for fire trucks that's at least 12 feet
I
wide?
would say a 12-foot lane
Yeah.
for trucks to get all the way around the permit,
Designated
And water
ingress
source.
egress.
Yeah.
That's 12 feet wide.
We already had those.
yeah, that's why they're gonna
But we
get.
can
the
look
footage
at
of
the
the pond.
Yeah.
subdivision
I mean, it's-
ordinance and kind of come up with an appropriate turnaround space, and that's consistent with other things in town.
But the topic itself will be addressed in the formal application, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so do I need to repeat that again or not?
No,
No, you don't.
Okay.
But
so-
again, we have a
No, I
motion.
think.
Motion second,
I
and we're
think-
still discussion. Also, the understanding is that Brenda's going to take this to the town attorney
Yes,
tomorrow to see
subject
if
to-
this is legit. And also, could we also look into Cecile's notations about back in 2021, March 3rd of that year, that somehow the conditional use was removed.
And I would also say, when Brenda talks, I mean, if this isn't, and obviously she'll let us know, if the town attorney says there's no, the town has liability if we are issuing a temporary permit, then it's back to the drawing boards, and we gotta go full bore before anything gets changed, I
But
guess.
I'll make sure he understands that Dan's reading, your concerns.
Yeah, because otherwise, we don't want to put the town in a liability situation, which I know is too.
And you don't want to put the persons in a lurch either.
Yeah, it's good. We'll put it afterwards.
I guess we got a motion, seconded, commented on.
Okay, is there any more discussion? All in favor of granting a temporary permit?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming in, and,
Yeah.
but don't sit on your hands.
Yeah, you want to get moving on this.
Because, I mean, we gotta see some good faith, I mean, I would hope that the town would see good faith
The March
going forward.
thing surprises me because I'm almost positive we were in Daytona that week, that year. So I don't know that.
It's possible that you were not here and it's the code enforcement officer that approached the planning board with this issue. But it should be in our minutes, so we'll research.
Take a look.
We'll be on it.
Okay, well,
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Let's hope we can get this worked out.
Yes.
And thanks, Ben, for showing up too. There was something else. Oh, yeah.
Really good.
Did you get all that, Julie? Anything else?
I'll be sure to watch the video about 40 times.
Oh,
Oh,
can I
this
make-
one?
just
Did I
add something
see
Go
it?
ahead, Dawn.
Just in case, I know this is gonna, I'm not sure how this is gonna affect you, but I went to my second meeting with it wasn't my meeting. I went to talk with the select board, second time, which happened this past Monday, about our requested change to the contract zoning. And so there was some discussion there. Bottom line is they did not vote on it. They didn't vote against it. They, unless they did something after I left, I stayed for a while after there was a discussion. And two select board members felt that we should follow the process in the new town charter, that we should not go forth with this at this stage of the game because there is no pending contract zoning application. But they felt that, two of them at least felt that we should follow the process in the new charter, which requires going and getting the 75 signatures, which isn't a super big deal, but it would put off any action on any changes until 24, November of 24. So they didn't vote it down, but they just let it sit there. So I'm a little bit frustrated there, but they didn't. There was no. I think two of the members of the five, two of them were in favor of it. Two were definitely appeared to be against it, and one didn't say anything, pro or con. So that's where we are.
Because there was no formal vote on it, I think it's still live.
It's on the table.
I
If
agree.
without any objection on the part of the board, I'd like to give it another shot next selectmen's meeting.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand, they still have 30 days prior to town meeting to put a non-monetary warrant before the town. And the pitch I would make is that, although it doesn't seem likely that anyone between now and
2024.
will come up with something, that blindsides us. My point of view is an open door is an invitation. And as long as that language, and not limited to, exists, the potential for abuse is there. And again, would put us behind the 8 ball. We could say no to it, and it's off the court. The town goes.
It's true.
So I'd like to give it a shot. See how it goes.
Were you thinking maybe about going to that meeting?
My apologies for not showing up on Monday.
No, I mean, I didn't. Yeah, I'm quite honestly, I'm frustrated in the sense that I thought we made our case. We've made our case a couple of times here,
Right.
and there's also in the existing charter, you can read it such that the select board should not be able to block this. It should go from the planning board to the voters.
And it says that in our ordinance.
Yes, it says in our ordinance, but that doesn't, the way it's been interpreted by the select board apparently is if they don't approve it, it doesn't go on the warrant, so therefore it's dead. Whether they take a vote or not, they have to vote to put it on there, but I think they're off, And again, we could go to, we don't have, I mean, if we go to the town lawyer supports the town. I don't think the town lawyer is necessarily, if you go to MMA possibly, but you don't get, I mean, the problem with MMA is that
Not fighting.
they're not binding and they usually don't get into disputes in a town, I don't think. I mean, it's not their business.
What I have an issue with is where the planning board is going by the book. We're going by the process, a process that's been in place and is legal, documented, and approved right now. And that's not, the select board is asking us to change that process according to a new charter, which is right, but that's not in effect yet.
That's right.
So legally, the planning board has the right to have this issue brought before the town to vote, not the selectmen to vote. It's the town that's supposed to vote whether this is going in the ordinance or not.
I agree with you,
It's
but
totally
I'm-
unfair. I think it's,
I agree with you, but all I can say is that,
they're contradicting themselves. They want to follow
there's
process.
just a feeling there that, I don't think it's going anywhere with the select board. There's the fifth person who didn't express an opinion one way or the other. So, and that was the person that was missing in the August vote that took it off, that after we had it approved, et cetera, and it didn't go. I'm not trying to get everybody stirred up, but I just, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
And
And then they asked us to make a couple of changes to begin with.
And I have the documentation of when, we started this back in 21. And they came to our public hearing and they made us change some of the verbiage inside of it. So it was, and then they approved it. So I don't understand why this is not going through. And this is
well,
totally
anyway.
not like against what the
And
state
the other thing I would
says to do.
suggest is if I go to the next meeting, which I don't know if I want to, but if I go to the next meeting, is I would certainly like to ask the select board to take a vote, yes or no.
Let's go on
Yes.
record.
It's and to my opinion, it's a very, and I'll say this to our thousands of people here on the YouTube. It's like, it's a very disrespectful response to the planning board when we submit a letter recommending something. It goes from the planning board to the select board. They talk about it and then they don't take a vote on it. It's like saying, hey, you're wasting your time. We're not even going to consider this. That's not right. You should take a vote, yes or no, so you're on the record as to what your opinion is. You shouldn't sit there and say, I don't like it. So,
Right, there should be some justification
yes.
as to why they don't agree with the changes that we
Anyway,
made, which
so,
agrees with the state.
And you can look at the YouTube and I wasn't in my best mood, but that's all right. Question.
Ryan?
I had to step out. I don't know if you guys already covered it or not, but I think you guys are giving the select board a lot more leeway than you need to because this is all your jurisdiction. You guys, in our current ordinance, control the zoning ordinances. You can bring it to the people to vote on. You don't need them.
You're saying in our ordinance and in the charter?
Yes,
That's a person.
Yes, yes.
on our current charter.
That's right.
And so could the people, if the people got a petition together, they can go bypass the select board and the
Right.
planning board.
But they don't need to do that because the planning board has already unanimously voted to do this.
And the people gonna vote on it. Whether they accept it or
It
not.
should go to the people. It shouldn't.
Well, we agree, but there's several people on the select board that don't agree.
But it's not in their power.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying is things are being interpreted at this time. The select board assumes they have the authority to approve everything that goes to the town on the warrant, either the written or to the town floor. And they're not willing to give that up at this time. In other words, they're saying if we don't vote to do it, it can't be done. That's my impression. If I'm incorrect, please somebody tell me, but.
I can read you what I have.
No, I'm not disagreeing with what your wording is. I think your wording is correct. I'm just saying that the select board does not agree with that, apparently.
They don't have to agree.
Well, unfortunately, they seem to control what goes to the town on the town warrant. So that's where the glitch is.
Just bring it to the public's attention.
Yes, section 305, number 4 in the
And
charter.
so what so if you don't really like what the selectmen do, or select persons do, your choice is to recall.
In the old charter.
That's the deal. And
Place right
it may be that some of the ones who disagree won't be around anyway, so who knows? Can I ask one other thing? Can we get off this subject?
Happily.
Does Julie, do you have a word version of the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, I know that we, in the past, we've come up with some changes, including this one on contract zoning, but there's some other changes. Is there a way to, I would like, personally, I'd like to get a copy or access to the Word version so that I could sit there at home possibly and my spare time when I'm having a libation, type in some recommended changes and then submit them to you and ask you to keep as long as everybody agrees, keep a running copy of changes that the planning board is approved or at least is under consideration, so that I would anticipate it'll, sometime in 23, shouldn't say 23. Certainly by the end of this year, we should submit to the ordinance review committee all the changes we want to do, because going through the process to get it on 24 ballot is going to take some time. So I don't think we need to keep going over and over again, but if Julie had, say, a running copy of changes that we have recommended or voted on or recommending, and then we can take a final vote, we can say, okay, here are the changes. I think there may be, some are editorial, some of them are substantive.
Right.
And we haven't even looked at land use tables yet, which is another thing, which there may be some issues there.
The land use tables, a lot of issues.
Land use table.
Yes.
So, but I think if we could keep, because I get confused. I keep thinking, yeah, we talked about that one, but what do we do? Do we vote on it or, so where are we? We don't only sit here at the January of 24 and say, wait a minute. Where are we? I think the planning board's going to have to submit to the ordinance review committee under the new charter
2 years in advance.
changes and then say, here's our changes for now, and maybe we'll have some more, but here's ones for you to work on, because the ordinance review committee is getting organized and they're looking at land use and some other issues. And it's gonna come up pretty quickly, I think.
I have notes from changes that we've talked about.
Yeah, and that's
We
what I'm
had that
saying.
whole issue too with the marijuana that Patty had wanted to have changes to. I think those were brought before the select board at some point.
Yeah, and I see, that's what I'm saying. I'm going
Yeah.
to consolidate this. And this is one other thing.
Try to, maybe list those, and I did give you some. Yeah, that was some of them. We have a lot more of items that we've,
But if we had a Word document, you could add them in
yes,
highlighted, just so that we
Bingo.
know, scanning through, this is what we propose for the changes, instead of having the ordinance and separate
And a
papers
list, right.
printing out, trying to match up where everything goes.
right.
And if you quick track changes, it leaves what was in there with a strike through.
Mhm.
Right.
So that anybody, you don't even have to do that, it does it for you automatically.
Does it? Yeah.
Makes it very nice.
Yeah, I think it would be a better way of handling it.
Mhm.
Because my two-finger typing is,
So did everybody get to read the March 15th, 2023 meeting minutes?
Yes. I did.
Any discussion on them?
Don had a few suggested changes.
Yeah, they've been
So
corrected.
Kelly,
okay.
they were updated, and
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
the printout has the updated changes, the official copy.
All right.
All right.
Look it over and sign it in black. I provided pens today.
So I'll make a motion, we accept the March 15, 2023 meeting minutes as corrected.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I guess for our next meeting, I guess we'll schedule our next 207 if they have anything by then.
What else are we pending? We're pending on I mean, nobody's coming.
We
in.
got Joshua Martino on Brock Road for the Quality College cottages.
Nothing new there?
Nothing new there. I had, Brenda had called Sanford because they have a similar setup.
Mhm.
And I went scrolling through their meeting minutes that were online and did find a document about your campground type setup and forwarded it to him. He was gonna look into it. There was a document that was not online that I need to take some time to go and get in Sanford so that he has access to that. It gives him an idea of what they required for it, and it will help you understand what he's trying to do. But I just haven't gotten over there to get it, and I haven't heard from anybody else.
No, nothing from Brock Road, cluster subdivision.
And that was still subject to the letter of map revision from FEMA, right?
They had submitted that.
Okay.
I think at the beginning of March, mid-March. And they filed that intent to file a stormwater law permit application. That's the latest I got from them, and that was a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I only reach out to everybody about
Yep.
once every other
Yep,
month
that's
now
fine.
because
And there's nothing from Mr. Austin? Remember, he was the gentleman who wanted to expand?
nope, he said when he was ready, he would let us know.
Yep.
I guess no news is no news.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Well, we'll have MX 207 on the next meeting, and hopefully they have something.
I'm sorry, just one other thing that
Go ahead, Joe.
isn't listed here. The status of Green Acres.
Oh.
They are off the agenda for now. Until he submits,
List of
this
List
was
of
talked
abutters.
about a month ago that
And nothing has been submitted, no communication from the applicant about, okay.
no, I emailed him and spoke to him on the phone, and when he's ready, he will return, and
Okay.
I will move forward and put him back on, but not until then.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Sorry, thank you.
It's choice. It's his choice.
All right.
Did we want to start talking about the short-term rentals? I actually wanted to send you, I quickly found.
No, Kelly, I want to go home, go to bed. I gotta get
No, no,
up.
no, for the agenda next meeting.
Next thing, yeah.
For the next month.
I think Brenda's got something.
Your maps, your zoning maps.
Yes.
I made copies of.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'd like to get that on the town meeting floor so we can talk about it. Because people are going to think, they're going to look at their street and say, my street doesn't go that, or whatever. This isn't about streets, it's not about, it's about the zoning.
Mhm.
And what has changed, I called MMA, they said we do have to put it on for a vote, because even though it's a correction, it's a change. So you didn't get one? No way, yeah. So,
Are they-
the.
The last, very last
only
page.
difference is on
It should
that.
be in the
Very
very
last.
last pocket, the back pocket.
Yeah.
Oh,
Amazing.
So the only difference on those maps is primarily,
Mhm.
along Route 111.
Mhm.
The commercial overlay on the original map was a straight line across. And
Yeah.
it's supposed to be 1,500 feet from the center of the road. So now you see the zone follows the road.
Mhm.
Follows the road.
Okay, and it was the same thing on,
Oh,
on,
Route 5?
no, well, Route 5 too, yes, that commercial, same thing. But there's also a portion on the residential zone that follows along the road.
maybe, was it South Waterboro Road or
It might be.
one of those?
It
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
follows right along here.
Yeah, that's South
That's it.
Waterboro
Yeah.
Road. Should be.
So that's the same thing, that zone is 500 feet on each side, so now it's no longer a straight line,
Ah,
which
good.
could make a difference if somebody came in for a permit.
Sure,
On the
absolutely.
old maps, I'd have, and I have to go by the map that's voted on,
Oh, of course.
so that's what this is, and,
Yeah, that's always
the
been.
reason why I wanted to get it on the town meeting floor, I'm not a resident, so
gravel.
someone's got to be there to explain that it's just
I
a
guess that was the
correction,
plan when they fill
nothing
it.
had to change. It is not about roads, And Jim Thomas, who, Joey, you sent him our way, he's done a marvelous job.
Greg Bill, he's the
Oh, I
one.
thought it was you. Okay, we'll give Bill the credit.
Mhm.
And he's going to come, he's done some maps for us that anybody can actually pull it up and I can measure on it and.
Really?
And the parcels are gonna be there, all the parcels.
Wow, that's good.
And, yeah, so he's going to come in and do some training on how we can use those maps to their greatest potential. I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
So I have been telling you, if you do see a correction on there, like a road or something like that, we can change those
Oh.
without a vote. We just have to vote on zoning.
This is one thing about the way the legend reads. Light green is shoreline district. Dark green is residential. And it seems like it's transposed in
Oh,
in
is
this
it?
version.
He did tell me he's
Am I?
colorblind, so he said
Well-
if you see something wrong, let me know.
Yeah, those two are not,
Okay.
They should be different contrasting colors.
I thought maybe no green at all might be better because people that do have trouble with colors might not see a difference there. right?
oh, I see your point, yeah.
You start looking at Portland
Yeah, it is.
zoning and you have every shade of the rainbow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that green is a little strange.
Okay, we'll check that out.
And
And
the,
on the newest one, he has put on the signature block for the town clerk and for planning board chair to sign in. And then she will notarize those after, of course, if they get voted in. And then we'll be right up to snuff.
it just looks like in the southwestern boundary of the town, there's a double line there.
You know what that is?
The-
That's
the
what was
uncertainty-
intention with Alfred. That's that section that came up when you were doing.
Get the Harper.
Subdivision down there on Old Kennebunk.
Oh,
Road.
Kennebunk.
Remember that Alfred came in and said,
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Isn't that still being resolved?
that's, yeah.
I hope. I don't know.
Well,
I
we could-
was told by the engineer of the subdivision application out there, that's what was holding them up, that they're trying to figure that out. So I thought, great.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, maybe the boundary lines that were set and referred to in the history of Lyman might be
Yeah.
of assistance. All we have to do is find the right couple of trees. I'm sure they're still there. With
It probably is
the
still
rock,
there.
you know.
The boundary of the Jones Field.
Like rub all over it.
But I think those maps look wonderful.
Good job on that.
It does show that there are some parcels that are divided between one zone and another.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Thank you.
Not uncommon or difficult,
So is it, I think Lindsay has to have
This is
those,
shoreline, but look at
and,
this.
well,
That's your,
I've already
that's
asked
your,
him to put it on the warrant, so it's going to be on the warrant.
residential
Oh.
district, so all the subdivision is residential.
Yeah, okay.
And what I thought is.
That,
once
yeah,
we,
it doesn't,
you know,
it's not.
Well, it should be a
decide
different
that's
color. Yeah.
correct, and it looks like
Even
it's
orange or
correct,
something.
then I'll get it out around.
As long as its colors are corrected,
Yeah.
I think.
Can he put a scale on this?
Mm.
The only-
That'd be helpful.
Because I asked him, because he was telling me that size maps that we have all over the place, wherever it is,
Yeah, the big.
is only like $3. So I said, it would be great idea to have an even bigger one. That's how I think. And he said that he'll put a scale on it so that when we do that, it won't knock it out of whack.
Okay.
As far as public hearing on that, that would be done by the select board, I would think.
I think it would fall under the warrant public hearing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
I don't think we would necessarily have anything to do with it. I
No,
mean,
but, and maybe not, but I think town meeting day, it
Oh,
might be
yeah.
nice to have someone there that
Sure.
can speak well to it.
oh, yeah. Yeah, there'll be somebody there.
Yeah, because I'm sure there will be questions. People will ask about roads and things, and that isn't what we're addressing.
I got a couple of GIS sites. Because any of the like, you may already use them or not. One is main GIS, something like that.
Is that wetlands?
We're getting modern.
This basically,
Yep, I did.
I mean, it's go through them every single parcel that.
You want to change
By zooming in and I've got
it,
another
add this
one
to it.
that is all topographical with a lot, with lots of them. So I gotta make a note to say,
July 1st to 5.
What I do right now is go up and grab Acton, come down to line, and I click wetlands, and I come down to Lyman and see where the wetlands are.
oh, that's
Yeah.
right. There's another,
I'll make a motion, we close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
What can I just,
Aye.
All
Paul hasn't
stay?
said anything all night.
Nope.
We jumped on that one.
just bring to everyone's attention, did we get,
Oh, yeah.
we all got copies of this? With respect to
On the MMA?
MMA?
Is that
Uh,
in our pack?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, Julie put it in there.
Thank you, Julie, because there's a pending bill, hearings on it next Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah.
That would extend the effective date of 2003, LD 2003, to 2025.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, and my understanding is that this has got some traction. That bill.
Well, they gotta do something because they haven't given us any information.
Right.
Oh,
In the lurch. Another day.
they're famous for closing the door after the cow's out, you know?
Don't do
Yeah.
this. Do what? I don't know, but don't do it.
Oh,
You gotta